Hello and welcome to the Benton Fridays for Future collaboration. In this video, members of Fridays for Future will use the Benton's current exhibit, The Human Epoch, Living in the Anthropocene, to critically dissect the relationship humans have with the environment and the many institutionalized problems we see today. If you are unaware of who we are at Fridays for Future, we are a student-run organization that focuses on pushing UConn and the greater Connecticut community towards policy that fulfills environmental justice. For far too long, our institutions have ignored disparities in the burden of environmental degradation and pollution facing minority and low-income communities. So today, we're here to shed light onto only a small portion of the problem that runs deep within our society.
We need to recognize that the systems that encourage continuous economic growth and constant consumption will not be able to appropriately mitigate and adapt to the climate crisis. Companies are required to make a profit to stay in business by cutting labor and resource costs, which incentivizes them to exploit their workers and to get their products in unsustainable ways. This need to exploit or be exploited ultimately results in a dangerous consolidation of power as profitable businesses are now able to lobby and influence our laws. Issues such as this illustrate that current environmental solutions such as sustainable development are often manufactured by businesses in order to avoid truly changing their practices. One such example of this is the concept of carbon neutrality. Companies often advertise their sustainable practices, modeled not by altering their production systems, but instead by buying carbon offset credits. In a similar fashion, companies will model entire advertising campaigns off of a small environmental improvement in a process known as greenwashing. The biggest pattern found within green capitalism is that it relies on changes within the system and believes that change is possible by voting with your dollar. Rather than tackling policy and economic changes, the responsibility is often put on individuals to make green choices. This concept, as well as the carbon footprint calculator created by BP, represent the resistance to change on an institutional level and often delay changes to policies presented by politicians in the pocket of the big oil or the military-industrial complex, two of the largest sources of pollution.
The mainstream climate movement has long had issues with diversity, inclusivity, and bowing to the will of the state and big corporations. Formally established groups like the Sierra Club, the League of Conservation Voters, and others have failed to diversify themselves along race and class lines and mobilize those outside their core of white, middle-class liberal members. These groups have often focused only on broader long-term changes through legislative processes and influencing corporations, ignoring more immediate climate destruction that takes place in poor, predominantly minority communities across the country. These groups and their members also often embrace green capitalism and growthism, relying on imperialism, not recognizing that there can be no climate justice under a system that puts profit over people. By failing to acknowledge the immediate effects of climate change and its disproportionate effects on people of color, as well as the intrinsic connections climate change has to other social issues, the mainstream climate movement has struggled to become more inclusive and diverse. As a result, the movement lacks both credibility to build solidarity with other social justice groups, and it lacks unique lived experience-based viewpoints that could articulate the intersections of climate change and help the movement appeal to a wider audience. Moving forward, the mainstream climate movement must address its historical shortcomings if it is to truly be a movement for everyone.
There's no environmental justice without racial justice, and this is a key reason why capitalism can never be green and must be dismantled. Capitalism is a specific economic system which emerged from feudalism in the 17th and 18th century England. This process involved the expropriation of millions of European peasants from the common land that they had farmed for centuries under feudalism and their migration into cities to become wage workers. In this way, capitalism made everyone dependent on the market and private property for the basic necessities which community and legal ties had previously provided. Due to many technological, social, and geographical factors, Western European nations were not only the first to develop capitalism, but also the first to establish colonialism in the Americas, Asia, and Africa. Today, where colonialism has been overthrown, neocolonialism and other forms of economic imperialism persist, leaving our global economy dominated by Europe and the United States. The basis of industrial capitalism. The factories, raw materials, and labor required for its development all came not only from this European working class, but from Africa, Asia, and the Americas through the plunder of imperialism and colonialism. In these places, Europeans would turn conquered land into private property for white capitalists and turn conquered populations into wage laborers or slaves. Environmental racism is simply the consequences of racism as they are felt within the environment of the victims of racist institutions. This could mean having your community polluted. However, it could also mean being deprived access to food, such as in modern food deserts, being forcibly relocated time and time again, such as is the history of African Americans, or it could mean having one's entire land stolen and destroyed, such as with the Indigenous American Genocide. Environmental racism occurs for the same reason all racism occurs, because whiteness, capitalism, and imperialism are interlinked systems which consolidate power at the expense and oppression of all that they exclude. The environment is just one domain in which these institutions practice dispossession and other forms of violence. Capitalism, imperialism, colonialism, and whiteness are all interlinked and codependent processes today as they have been since their inception. Capitalism is a system of conquest which cannot be reformed, cannot be unlinked with institutional environmental racism, and therefore can never be green. It must be abolished.
While these problems may seem distant to our community at UConn, considering the Office of Sustainability often flaunts awards such as being Platinum in Stars, being a top 10 ranked Sierra Club Cool School, and more, taking a deeper look into UConn's commitment to sustainability, we see action that too often contradicts the rhetoric. This past year, UConn refused to even acknowledge our cries to stop the replacement of the cogen power plant boilers. There was never even a feasibility study done on this area for the potential of geothermal wells, clearly indicating the fact that UConn is not willing to even take the simplest of actions in order to reach sustainability goals. Constant assertions that it is not fiscally responsible for the university to develop sustainable energy has far too long been an excuse that only perpetuates the problem year after year. When will be the right time to invest in green energy? Considering the university has not even met its goal of 20% reductions in greenhouse gas emissions by 2020, how will we expect the school to do better if action is not taken immediately? On top of that, the very administration that created the President's Working Group on Sustainability and the Environment has neglected a 200-page report that the dedicated students, grad students, and faculty completed on June 5th, 2020, and to this day, there has not been a single action taken, let alone an ounce of transparency from the administration. An even more frustrating aspect of this institution is the fact that the UConn Foundation, the organization that collects and invests all fundraised money at the school, acts as a private entity with far less transparency than even our administration. ExxonMobil Foundation and Chevron Tehako Corporation are only two of many problematic donors to our school. If our institution truly believes that climate change is an existential threat, then we must break ties from organizations that actively harm our environment. Even this past year, ExxonMobil was being sued by Connecticut's Attorney General William Tong over decades of intentional misinformation campaigns that the company used to deceive the public regarding the effects of climate change. If you are a student, faculty, or member of the Connecticut community, I urge you to reevaluate the trust you put into our institution and to always critically look at the policies put forward. There is a blatant lack of transparency with the student body, and considering undergraduates make over 50% of the school's revenue, it is unjustifiable that only one board of trustees seat is granted to an undergraduate student. The next time you think of climate change, think not only of the disastrous effects that the environment will face, but of the millions of BIPOC and poor people around the world that face the effects of it already, and will continuously battle the misfortunes of environmental destruction that our institutions' policies have brought upon us. Thank you.